Visual English Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Visual English Podcast, or VEP for short. I'm Ben, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Bella. How are you doing today, Bella?
Hi, Ben. I'm doing fantastic, thank you. And a big hello to all our listeners out there. It's great to be back in the studio with you. Today, we have a highly requested topic, something that absolutely everyone can relate to, regardless of where they live or what they do for a living.
That's exactly right. Today, we are going to dive deep into the topic of daily routines. We'll be discussing our personal habits, how we manage our time, the struggles of waking up early, and some productivity hacks we've picked up along the way. Whether you're a creature of habit or someone who prefers spontaneity, there's going to be something in this episode for you.
Absolutely. Routines are so fundamental to our lives. They shape our productivity, our mental health, and our overall well-being. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of our morning alarms and coffee addictions, I just want to remind our viewers of something important. If you're enjoying our podcast and want to improve your English with us every week, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow.
Yes, please do. Your support means the world to us. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode of VEP. All right, Bella, let's kick things off at the very beginning of the day, the morning. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Oh, I am definitely an early bird, but it wasn't always this way. It took a lot of discipline to change my sleeping schedule. Nowadays, my alarm goes off at 6 a.m. sharp. I try my best not to hit the snooze button. Although I have to admit, on cold winter mornings, it's incredibly tempting to stay under the warm blankets.
6 in the morning? Wow, I admire your dedication. I fall somewhere in the middle. I wouldn't call myself a night owl, but waking up at 6 a.m. sounds like a punishment to me. My alarm is set for 7:30 a.m., and unlike you, I am guilty of hitting the snooze button at least twice. I need that extra 15 minutes to mentally prepare myself for the day ahead.
I completely understand that. When I finally drag myself out of bed, the first thing I do is drink a large glass of water. I read somewhere that hydrating immediately after waking up jumpstarts your metabolism. After that, I spend about 20 minutes doing some light stretching or yoga. It helps me get rid of that groggy feeling and makes me feel centered. What about you, Ben? What is the first thing you do?
My routine is slightly less mindful, I must confess. The very first thing I do is stumble into the kitchen to make coffee. I am heavily reliant on my morning caffeine fix. Without a strong cup of black coffee, I can barely form a coherent sentence. While the coffee is brewing, I usually scroll through the news headlines on my phone.
Ah, the classic morning news scroll. I try to avoid looking at screens for the first hour of my day. I find that if I immediately look at emails or social media, I start feeling overwhelmed before the day has even properly begun. Instead, while I have my breakfast, which is usually oatmeal with berries, I like to listen to a soft acoustic playlist or an audiobook.
That sounds incredibly peaceful. I usually eat breakfast on the go, a quick slice of toast or a banana as I'm rushing out the door. I know it's not the healthiest habit, but time always seems to slip away from me in the mornings. However, I am trying to be more consistent with my morning shower. Taking a cold shower, believe it or not, has been a game changer for my alertness.
A cold shower? You are braver than I am. Let's transition to the next part of the day, the commute and the workday. My commute is relatively short, about 30 minutes by subway. I use that time constructively. I usually listen to educational podcasts, much like our listeners are doing right now. It feels like I'm utilizing dead time effectively.
That's a great strategy. If anyone is listening to us on their commute right now, leave a comment down below and let us know where you're traveling to. My commute is a bit more stressful. I drive to work, and the traffic in the city center can be an absolute nightmare. I spend about 45 minutes bumper to bumper. To keep my sanity, I put on upbeat music and sing along. It reduces the stress significantly.
Whatever works to keep the road rage away. So once you arrive at work and sit at your desk, how do you prioritize your tasks? I know productivity is something a lot of English learners struggle with when balancing their studies and jobs.
That is a fantastic question. The first thing I do when I open my laptop is review my schedule for the day. I use a technique called time boxing. I allocate specific blocks of time to certain tasks. For example, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I only answer emails, no other distractions. By setting these strict boundaries, I find I'm much more efficient.
I use a similar approach, but I rely heavily on the eat the frog method. Have you heard of it? It basically means tackling your most difficult or unpleasant task first thing in the morning when your willpower is at its highest. Once that major task is out of the way, the rest of the day feels like a breeze.
I love that expression, eat the frog. It makes a lot of sense. If you procrastinate and leave the hardest task for the afternoon, it just hangs over your head all day, causing unnecessary anxiety. Another thing I try to incorporate into my workday is taking regular short breaks. I use the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a 5-minute break to stand up and stretch my legs.
The Pomodoro technique is indispensable for me, especially when I'm writing scripts for our channel. It prevents burnout. Speaking of the channel, we put a lot of effort in creating these B2 level conversations for you guys. If you appreciate the vocabulary and the realistic dialogues we provide on Visual English Podcast, subscribing and liking the video is the best way to show your support. It motivates us to keep producing high-quality content.
Well said, Bella. Now let's talk about the middle of the day, the lunch break. This is a crucial part of the daily routine that many people neglect. I used to be terrible at this. I would eat a sandwich at my desk while continuing to type. I realized eventually that it was ruining my productivity for the afternoon.
Eating at your desk is a terrible habit. You really need to step away from your workspace to give your brain a rest. I always make sure to leave the building, even if it's just for 20 minutes. I'll go for a brisk walk around the block or sit in the nearby park if the weather's pleasant. Getting some fresh air and natural sunlight completely recharges my batteries.
I've started doing that recently too. I also noticed that what I eat for lunch has a massive impact on my energy levels. If I have a heavy meal, like a big bowl of pasta or fast food, I experience a terrible energy slump around 3 p.m. I feel lethargic and find it incredibly difficult to concentrate.
Oh, the dreaded afternoon slump. It's inevitable if you consume too many refined carbohydrates. I try to stick to a light, balanced meal, a salad with some grilled chicken or a bowl of soup. It provides sustained energy without making me feel drowsy. If I do hit a wall in the afternoon, instead of reaching for another cup of coffee, I'll have a cup of green tea or a handful of almonds.
Green tea is a great alternative. It has just enough caffeine to give you a gentle lift without the jitters that coffee can cause. As the workday winds down, usually around 5:30 p.m., I spend the last 15 minutes organizing my desk and writing a brief to-do list for the following day. It helps me disconnect from work mentally before I even leave the office.
Leaving work at work is an essential boundary to set. When I get home, the first thing I do is change out of my work clothes into something comfortable. It's a physical cue to my brain that the workday is officially over. Then it's time for dinner. I really enjoy cooking. I find the whole process of chopping vegetables and following a recipe to be quite therapeutic.
You're much more domestic than I am. I rely heavily on meal prepping. On Sundays, I cook a large batch of food, portion it out into containers, and keep them in the fridge. During the week, when I'm exhausted after work, all I have to do is heat up a meal in the microwave. It saves me an enormous amount of time and prevents me from ordering takeout.
Meal prepping is incredibly efficient. Maybe I should try that to save some time during the week. After dinner, how do you usually spend your downtime? Do you have any specific hobbies?
My evening routine is dedicated to relaxation. I try to stay away from work-related thoughts entirely. I'm a huge fan of video games, specifically first-person shooters. It requires focus and reflexes, which strangely helps me switch off from the real world. I'll play for an hour or two, chat with some friends online, and just decompress. What about you?
Video games sound fun, but my evenings are a bit quieter. I'm an avid reader. I usually curl up on the sofa with a cup of chamomile tea and read a novel. Right now, I'm making my way through a fascinating historical fiction. Occasionally, I'll binge watch a new series on a streaming platform, but I try to limit my screen time as it gets closer to bedtime.
That brings us to a very important topic: Sleep hygiene. Having a solid bedtime routine is just as important, if not more important, than a morning routine. If you don't get a good night's sleep, your entire schedule the next day falls apart.
Absolutely. Sleep deprivation is the enemy of productivity. To ensure I sleep well, I have a strict rule. No glowing screens at least an hour before bed. The blue light emitted by phones and laptops suppresses melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep. That's why reading a physical book works so well for me.
I completely agree about the blue light. I also make sure my bedroom is optimized for sleep. It needs to be cool, completely dark, and quiet. I even use blackout curtains. I aim for about 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. If I get less than that, I am incredibly cranky the next day. I usually turn the lights out by 11:30 p.m.
I'm usually asleep by 10:30 p.m., aiming for those full 8 hours. It's amazing how much better you feel when your body is fully rested. Now, Ben, we've talked extensively about our weekday routines, but what happens when Friday evening arrives? Do you maintain the same strict schedule over the weekend?
Not a chance. The weekend is when I throw the routine out the window. I let my body decide when it wants to wake up, which usually means sleeping in until 9 or 10 a.m. Weekends are for spontaneity. I might go hiking, meet up with friends for a late brunch, or just spend hours tinkering with my computer hardware, which is a big hobby of mine.
It's so important to have that contrast. If every single day was rigidly scheduled, life would become very monotonous. My weekends are also much looser. I still wake up relatively early out of habit, but the pace is much slower. I spend time doing laundry, catching up on household chores, and maybe visiting a museum or a local market. It's a time to recharge emotionally and physically for the upcoming week.
Exactly. The purpose of a daily routine isn't to turn you into a robot. It's to automate the necessary tasks so you have more time and energy for the things you actually enjoy doing. It provides structure so you can thrive.
That is a beautiful way to summarize it, Ben. Routines give us the foundation to build a successful and balanced life. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the moment our alarms go off to the moment we close our eyes at night.
We certainly have. We hope you guys found this conversation engaging and that you managed to pick up some useful B2 vocabulary along the way. Words like procrastinate, indispensable, spontaneity, and lethargic are great additions to your English arsenal.
We would love to hear from you now. What does your daily routine look like? Are you an early bird or a night owl? What is one habit you want to change or improve? Leave a comment down below and practice your English writing skills. We read every single comment.
And before we sign off, just one final reminder. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe to the Visual English Podcast. Sharing this video with your friends who are also learning English is a huge help to us.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of VEP. Keep practicing, keep listening, and we will see you in the next video.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a fantastic and productive day.